Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Yes, I look the same as another video. I'm not quite sure which order I'm gonna upload them in, but I did do another video looking like this. I went for my hair and makeup trial today for my wedding, and as I mentioned in that other video, I wanted to capitalise on the fact that I was done and presentable. So I am back with another video, making the most of this trial. So I'm going to be doing the book recommendation tag today. I've seen it all over booktube and I thought I'm going to give it a go. I love talking about books. If I've done this tag before, I'm really sorry. I may well have done, but we're going to do it again and we're just going to roll with it. And if I have done it before, I'm really sorry. So I know I'm going to rabbit on, so let's just get going. The first question is a book that you tell people is your favourite. So there's two. One of my personality traits is I can never pick favourites, okay? So I'm probably going to answer every single question and give you multiple books, but I've got at least one physical book to show you for each answer anyway. So the one that I kind of talk about as being my favourite book of all time is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I am well overdue a reread of this, and I also have Ill Will, which is by Michael Stewart, which is kind of like the missing years of Heathcliff when he goes travelling, and I really desperately want to read this gorgeous edition. Get to the point where Heathcliff goes missing and leaves the main story, read that book, Ill Will, and then come back to this. That's kind of what I'd like to do. But yeah, desperately overdue a reread. I love this. I read this. I've been brought up around the story of Wuthering Heights from a very young age. I have seen God knows how many different adaptations of it. I love it. And I desperately want to go to the Yorkshire Moors and to Bronte country and just like live my best life. I love the characters. They're flawed, they're awful to each other, but yes, this is my favourite book. But then I also very closely talk about Outlander too, because this is a book that I think is like kind of just like part of my personality now, if I'm being honest, and it's my favourite series of all time. It is 100% my favourite series of all time, and I feel like I can't talk about my favourite book and not mention this. I desperately need to do a reread of this series as well, but that is a commitment that I do not have the time for at the moment. Love this. And I'm sure some of these books are going to be mentioned as multiple answers to multiple questions. So just be prepared for that. You're welcome. A book that is your guilty pleasure. I picked two books for this, and I kind of feel like I'm trying to, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm trying to disassociate from guilt with reading. So just because I'm reading something that maybe I deem as not literary enough, or something that's maybe deemed socially kind of as maybe a bit more of a guilty read, I'm trying to disassociate from that and just reading what I'm enjoying. But books that I kind of sit down and I don't have to think about and I read and I really enjoy are two books that I've picked for this one. So the first one being The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have enjoyed everything I've read by Ali Hazelwood, and I'm really looking forward to her newest release, Love Theoretically, which is coming out soon. I believe I have it on pre-order. Just really enjoy it. It's really good. It's got really good messages behind it as well, but I just fly through these, and that's kind of where I get my guilty pleasure kind of aspect from, because they're just so enjoyable and I love it. But also I want to talk about The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armes, because when I read this the first time, I think you'll find there's a spoiler-filled vlog when I read this and I talked about all my thoughts. I didn't love her second book, The American Roommate, quite as much as this one, but this whole time I read this, I just enjoyed it so much, and I was just so enjoying it. Again, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. I feel like romances get a bad rep for being guilty pleasures, but I think it's because they're relatable. I don't have to think very hard when I read them, and it's kind of like watching, for me, like a rom-com. Like I find that really cleansing for my brain when I've had a really taxing day. So that's why I associate these ones with guilty pleasure kind of status. A book that everyone loved but you didn't. I actually quite enjoyed this book, and I'm talking more about the series Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I hope whilst Daisy's watching this, because I know she will be watching this, she kind of is sitting there and agreeing with me. Really kind of had a good start with Red Queen and really enjoyed it. And we had seen so many good things about it online, and we did a series read along together and we read the series, and it was just had a really promising start. And we really didn't enjoy the ongoing. Yeah. I just don't even know what to say about this. It just had so much potential and I felt like it fell so flat and so short. So yeah. This one was all right. It wasn't amazing. It was all right. It was readable. The rest of the series, the books got so, they're down here. The books got so chunky and just drivel. And another series that I haven't really enjoyed is the Wayward Children. Is this called the Wayward Children series? By Shauna Maguire. I think this is the Wayward Children series. I have kind of a love-hate relationship with these, because the ones that I've enjoyed, I've really quite enjoyed, but then there's been some which I just haven't, and they're so short, and that's the whole idea. They're novellas and they're all part of the same world and they've all got different stories and they all kind of interweave eventually, but they're not enough for me. They're not enough. So I just haven't enjoyed them as much. So I've heard everybody else say they're amazing. A book that you've read the fastest. Now this would probably be like a kid's book when I was really, really young, and I remember it. It was a Jacqueline Wilson book and I literally stayed up really, really late and my mum told me off, but she had said to me that she was coming up to say goodnight when I had to switch my light off, and she never did, and I went down to find her and I'd finished the book and she's like, "You're still up?" So that probably would be a book like I've read the fastest. But recently a book I read the fastest was All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover. I read this Saturday, maybe. I read this one day over the weekend, probably, yeah, Saturday, because I was out on Sunday, and literally read it in an afternoon. Really quite intense read and a real intense subject matter. Please check the trigger warnings for this before you read it, if you haven't read it already and if you're planning on reading it, because it was really intense and it made me feel really like, oh, when I was reading it, it really dragged me down. It was really interesting concept. It's really interesting topic to discuss, and I think necessary to discuss and talk about. Eye-opening, and made me think about maybe some of the things that I do or don't say or should or shouldn't say. But I read this in like an afternoon, and it's quite a short Colleen Hoover one. I find a lot of her books quite quick and easy to read, but I literally think it was like 305 pages and I just flew through it. The font was quite big as well, and the book itself is not massive, so yeah, that was probably my fastest recently, my most fastest read. The next question is a book that deserves more hype. Now, this one I have talked about, I think, probably quite a lot on my channel. This is Into the Wilderness by Sara Donati. This is recommended on all of the sort of like, if you finish with Outlander and you want another book like Outlander, different lists that are all over the internet. This one always comes up. And recently when I was speaking to somebody at my local book club, when I said that I loved Outlander, they were like, "Oh, have you read this?" And I was like, "Well, I've read some of the series. I need to finish it." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, they're amazing. They're really, really good." And then she's got like a spin-off series as well. She's like, "You need to read them all. Let me know if you want to borrow them. I've got them all." I just feel like this is so amazing and that this deserves so much more hype. So we follow a character, Elizabeth Middleton. We're in 1792. She travels from her English estate over to a remote New York mountain village. It's where her father lives. It's her father's settlement. It's actually called Paradise, I believe, or something like that. He's named it Paradise. And when she's there, she meets in this settlement. She meets a Native American family, and kind of this whole book kind of talks about and you journey with these characters through this kind of wilderness setting. It's amazing. Anyone that likes anything like Outlander, or just kind of like, so just I just get so absorbed and I'm in there, and the writing and the setting is just so rich and just amazing. I love this series, and I'm actually embarrassed at myself that I haven't finished it. I think I've got 2 more to read of the kind of initial series. They do jump in time, so we do have periods of like quite a lot of periods of time between like this and the next book, and then actually I don't think the next book we do, but with some of the further books throughout the series. What's really frustrating for me, if you've been here for a while, is that all of my copies in the series are like different editions, because it was really difficult in the UK to get a matching set. But please, if you like historical, you like sort of adventures and setting and nature, you'll love this. And anyone also that maybe likes sort of like Regency era as well, or enjoys sort of like classics like Jane Austen and even maybe the Brontes as well, because this is like strong female character. Do you know what I mean? Love this. This should definitely have more hype. It probably does in its circles, but like generally I think it should have more hype. A book that is becoming a movie or a TV show. There's been lots of talk about this. Lots and lots of talk about this. Ronald Moore, who is the guy that directed or produced, don't know which one, soz, I'm not up with the lingo, the Outlander series, the Outlander TV series, has got the job of doing the same, producing or directing, don't know which one. Apparently, from the all of the press that I've read, he's going to be bringing this to life. I cannot freaking wait. This is going to be so amazing. I really, really, really hope it's done justice, and I can't wait to see this on the screen. I said Outlander is my favourite series of all time. This is probably a close second, along with Crescent City. I love Crescent City. I'm not so bothered by Throne of Glass, but don't tell everybody. I'm a fake Sarah J Maas fan because I don't love Throne of Glass and the Throne of Glass series, but I loved this and I can't wait to see it on the screen. And I'm really intrigued by this. I really hope they do a good job. And yeah, can't wait for that one. I'm sure there's lots of other movies, TV shows. I think I've heard that some more of Taylor Jenkins Reid stuff is being produced. I think One True Loves is maybe already in the mix. I think I've seen something for that recently. But we love it. A series I think should be made into TV is The Seven Sisters, because I think that would be amazing. Anyway, the next question. A book that you have reread the most is probably this. It is probably this, and I'm not even like, I'm not even embarrassed to say it. I can't remember how many times I have read The Diary of a Chav, Trainers versus Tiaras by Grace Dent. I love these. I loved these as a kid, and as a young person, and maybe even into young adulthood. I think I probably enjoyed this as well when I was reading sort of like YA stuff. And I did recently go back and reread this for some reason, I can't remember why, and I thoroughly enjoyed it again. But also this has a bit of nostalgia now, because at the time of reading this was kind of like relevant popular culture references, but now rereading them you get a lot of kind of nostalgia with that. Also, a book that I have reread several times is A Court of Thorns and Roses. I've probably read this series now 3 times, 2 or 3 times. Maybe read this one 3 times, maybe not read the whole series 3 times, but I've done some rereading on that as well. But this one just sprung to mind, and yeah, I love that. It's a little bit of a quirky one for you. A book from a genre that you don't typically read. This is a one from a in real life book club that I went to, and I don't read a lot of thrillers. I just don't. whenever I pick one up, if it's a good one, I really enjoy it and it really keeps me on the edge of my seat, and I kind of say to myself, why didn't you read more thrillers, Sophie? But this one was amazing. This is called The Last Thing to Burn by Will Dean. Her husband calls her Jane. That is not her name. She lives in a small farm cottage surrounded by vast open fields. Everywhere she looks, there is space, but she is trapped. No one knows how she got to the UK. No one knows she is there. Visitors rarely come to the farm. If they do, she is never seen. Her husband records her every movement during the day. If he doesn't like what he sees, she is punished. For a long time, escape seemed impossible, but now something has changed. She has a reason to live and a reason to fight. Now she is watching him and waiting. I absolutely love this. I thought this was amazing, and I highly recommend this for anybody that enjoys thrillers. This is set, I think, in the Norfolk and the Norfolk Broads, and just like this really flat, open sort of plains of fields, and all you can see is just field for miles and miles and miles. And that is where it's set, and it's very atmospheric. And I spent the whole time just kind of inwardly cringing, but then sort of like not, and then kind of like wanting and like hoping and praying for this main character Jane, who isn't actually called Jane. And it was just amazing, and it was a completely thrilling, on the edge of your seat read, and this is exactly what a thriller should be. And I'm really glad I picked it up. I'm really glad I kind of pushed myself out of my comfort zone, because it could quite easily have been a book that I just went, no, not really interested in, and just not picked it up and read it. But actually, I'm really glad I did, and like I say, highly recommend. It's not massive either, and I did tab this because I was interested, as it's not my normal genre. I kind of tabbed it to pinpoint some moments. Also, when you go to a book club, you look a bit pretentious when you have tab books, but it's really easy to find some key quick moments easily, because there was a couple of things I really wanted to find and to kind of highlight in the meeting, so that was quite handy to have too. A book that deserves all the hype it gets. I mean, Outlander, A Court of Thorns and Roses, That Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. We could go on and 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 on about this. This is a book that I kind of relate quite heavily to kind of me getting back into reading. We all seem to go through stages in our lives, and I went through a stage sort of like in my early 20s where I didn't do an awful lot of reading. I was happy. I was, you know, living my best life. I still am living my best life, but my priorities were a little bit different, and I didn't read. And I kind of see this as one that I kind of saw coming online everywhere on BookTube, and I had to pick it up. And this is amazing. I think it deserves all the hype it gets. I've seen a couple of like negative or neutral reviews of this recently, but I think Taylor Jenkins Reid, I've talked about this recently, writes like crack on the page. Anything she writes about, I find so just absorbing and interesting, and I'm completely gripped and completely hooked. I'm in there, and this was just so real. This just felt so real to me. This could also, I think this is being made into a TV show or a movie or something, and I will lap all of that up. I think it will be amazing if it's done right, like Daisy Jones. I really enjoyed Daisy Jones, and I thought that was done really well. So if that's done similarly, I think this will be amazing. But I just found it so real and believable, and I was completely like, I googled Evelyn Hugo when I finished this, because I was like, she must be a real person. I want to see what she looks like and see what movies she's been in, see if I can watch something that she's been in. It was all a lie, obviously, but that is what Taylor Jenkins Reid does to you. Like, these people are real characters. There's just something about the way she writes, and she's phenomenal. And I'll read anything that she publishes, even if it's a cookbook, even if it's like a non-fiction. I will read anything. I recently watched an interview that she did with Kelly Clarkson about Daisy Jones and her writing and her research, and she was just amazing, and have so much love for this author. So that's one that I think deserves every ounce of hype, and any hype that she gets. A book you usually recommend when you're asked to give a recommendation. I really struggle with recommendations, and I normally, because I can't choose favourites and I try to gauge somebody, I might bash several like recommendations out at them. But one that's been really good recently has been Pharisee by Colleen Hoover. I've recommended this to several people that have then gone and read it absolutely loved it. So I feel like I have to use this one for this prompt because recently this is what I have been recommending. This is amazing. This is, again, a thriller, so a little bit different for me, but this is a completely like, just, it was a total, my brain afterwards, I don't want to swear, but my brain afterwards was like, what the F? You go like a complete 180 on characters, then you read the extra chapter that was put in the new edition, and then you go another complete 180 and you're like, what the F even more. This was just amazing. Again, very much like Taylor Jenkins Reid was like a crack on the page. I just read and read and read and read and couldn't stop. And I've been recommending it to several people, and several people that have read it after my recommendation have really, really, really loved it. And Daisy still needs to read it, and Daisy still hasn't read it, and she needs to pick it up. Daisy, if you're watching this, which I hope you are, read this now. Do it. A book that has your favourite characters. I'm not going to hold up a book because any of the characters from these books that I've already recommended, Evelyn Hugo, Feyre, Rhysand, Claire and Jamie Fraser, the list is endless. Catalina and what was his name? Was his name Aaron? I can't pick favourites. I can't do favourites. But any characters in these would be favourite characters. Well, apart from the nasty ones. A book that you wish you could live in. Again, I really wish I could experience Bronte Yorkshire Moors in Wuthering Heights. I really wish I could experience the world in A Court of Thorns and Roses. And the world of Prytheen is A Court of Thorns and Roses, and the world of like Crescent City. And I really wish that I could live in alongside, but with running water and plumbing. I really wish I could experience Outlander as well. The Scottish Highlands in, before a lot of Scotland is still rather remote, but I think it would be really interesting to see Edinburgh then at that era of history as well. And I can't pick favourites. Just can't. A book that you thought you would hate, but you ended up loving. I think hate's a very, very strong word. I didn't necessarily know whether I was going to enjoy The Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jake Kristoff. I don't read a lot of sci-fi, and this was probably quite daunting because this is like full of mixed media. We've got transcripts, we've got various different things. You do get some normal writing as well, but it's mostly told through, like, the idea is that this is a case file. Do we actually get any normal? I don't think we do actually get any normal writing. I said that like it was real, but I don't think we do. Oh no, maybe we do. Oh no, we don't. I think it's all told like a case study, like a dossier, and it's sci-fi. I was worried that maybe it would be a bit too sci-fi for me, a bit too over my head. I thought I might be a bit too thick for it, considering I don't consume a lot of sci-fi. But this was amazing. I've also heard that no, I haven't heard. I think I listened to this is a long time since I read these. I think I listened to these on audio as well, and they were amazing. I think these have full cast audios if my memory serves me right. And I'm pretty sure I read and followed along at the same time, which in some instances was actually really good because I probably won't be able to find one now close to hand, but there's a character that kind of has a deterioration, shall we say, and so we get some interesting no, that doesn't work. We get kind of like some visually quite interesting writing on the page, so like this, where you get the writing and, very, very interesting. But some of it was actually quite, throughout the series, was quite I just found the perfect one and I'm not going to be able to find it again. That one's like this. And if you're just reading it, off the cuff like this, you might not necessarily know, or it might be quite difficult to pinpoint like what order it's supposed to read it all in, so that was a positive as well of the audiobook. But this was phenomenal, and not my normal genre. I don't read a lot of sci-fi. I'm currently reading the Aurora cycle by the same author duo, which is more of a standard prose, less dossier, but I'm enjoying that just as much. And yeah, sci-fi is definitely not something I normally lean towards, but every time I read anything by this duo, I really enjoy it. So worth a read if you haven't read, or worth a listen on audio maybe if you haven't read or listened to them yet. A book that made you cry. This book was very kindly gifted to me by Jessica Hurst, if she's watching, for my birthday, I think, a couple of years ago. Yeah. 2021. So thank you very, very much, Jess. I recently read this and I sobbed. I don't want to give away spoilers. I had actually watched the TV show, and I'm desperately waiting for the next installment of episodes, which are due to hit on the 27th of April, I think. Set your alarms, kids. But this chronicles the story of Kate Malarkey and her school friend, Tully Hart. They live on the same lane, Firefly Lane, and it's basically them. It starts in the mid-70s and kind of chronicles their friendship and their lives right up until sort of like the present day, which is like, I think 2000s maybe, I don't know. Really, really enjoyed this, but oh my gosh, I wept. I'm not going to give away any spoilers. If you haven't watched the TV show, I do recommend it. I found that a lot more detailed, but this was just amazing. So amazing, and I absolutely sobbed. I was reading this with my niece, and well, she wasn't reading this, she was reading something else, and I was just sobbing and I couldn't control it. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No." So yeah, that was a book that made me cry recently. There's been lots of books that have made me cry. I'm quite an emotional person, so it's not unusual for me to cry at a book. And then the final question is a book that you wish you could read for the first time. You see, I kind of feel two ways about this question, because I kind of feel like maybe like rereading a book, you'd get more enjoyment or a different kind of enjoyment. So I kind of feel like in one breath that I probably would wish to reread some of my all-time favourites. Outlander, the Court of Thorns and Roses series, Crescent City. But then I kind of also feel like my enjoyment for them is Wuthering Heights. My enjoyment for them now is kind of like enhanced because I'm rereading them and I'm picking up on other bits or bits that I've forgotten. So I kind of feel a bit on the fence about that question. But I think it would be one of my kind of all-time favourites. Outlander, A Court of Thorns and Roses, Crescent City, Wuthering Heights. Probably. So that was the book recommendation tag. I hope you enjoyed. I hope I'm not too much of a broken record. I hope I haven't done this tag before and you're all sat there like really, really bored because you're like, this is old news, Sophie, you only talk about the same books all the time. Sorry, not sorry. But I would love to hear down below some of your answers to some of these questions. So definitely feel free to pick out your kind of like favourite question maybe and leave me a comment down below with what your answer would be, what book you would choose for that question. Have you read any of these books, or has listening to me ramble on about these books inspired you to read any of them? Please let me know if so. But I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!